Ladies and gentlemen of Meet Us at the Rig, I got this guy with me. He's got a squeaky chair, so apologies. We had some jerry-rigging going on. Is that PC? Can I say that?
I don't know.
We did some audio engineering.
We did some...
right before we did this, right before right now, when you guys are watching this. But technically, podcasting is weird, because then now we're talking to people in the future.
Right, we're time traveling.
Yes. Are we time traveling backwards or forward? They're going backwards. We're going forward.
Yeah. Yes.
Anyways, I got Brooks Narvaez here with me. Narvaez.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. This is only the second guest host we've had on the podcast. We've had Casey one time.
Yeah.
Now I've had two co-hosts, and now I have a guest host with me, Brooks.
Right.
Those of you who are listening, you might know him as the Shoe Man.
Yes. I like shoes.
We might talk about those a little bit later.
Maybe.
But I gave Brooks about 7 different items that we were going to talk about, and watch me audible you, and we're not going to talk about any of them. But we are going to talk about some. How did you get into? I guess how long have you been doing fitness now?
Fitness?
Yeah, like you mentioned bench pressing earlier with your uncle. You said.
Yeah.
When was that? How old were you?
From a very young age. Like, I think I was 12 when I first started getting into it.
That's like 30 years.
Yeah, I guess. But any kind of structured fitness, I got into my uncle, who's a big power lifter, and he had turned his little.
Was he literally a big power lifter, or was he just big into powerlifting? Was he like a big dude?
He was a very big guy.
Yeah.
He was a very big guy, and he was super into powerlifting, and he had a crew he cruised with that. You know, they competed.
Was it in St. Louis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I just thought it was super cool, and I'd always bug him to let me work out.
Did you ever go to meets with him?
No, I didn't. I never went with him, but I did later on. I did when I was like 15, 16. There was kind of like a makeshift YMCA team with this other.
Did you do a meet at that point, or was that?
Yeah, that's when I started competing.
Damn, 15, 16, started competing in powerlifting.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, I had some decent numbers. When I was like 6, I think it was 16. I was
Remember how much you weighed?
I was like 160.
160.
I know. I think the weight class is like 163 or 62 or something.
They've all changed so much.
Yeah,
they change them like every 2 or 3 years.
I know. I just went another one. I just walked my walk-in weight, so I just kind of weighed in and just cruised.
In pounds, do you remember what your weights were or your lifts were when you were?
Yeah, you know, I'm probably gonna embellish a little bit here.
I mean, that's what we.
But I remember I benched 285.
15 or 16.
Yeah, and then I know like
I laugh because guys, I'm pretty excited about my bench PR that's just 10 pounds away from that.
Yeah.
At 34.
I take different roads. You know, we cruise down live.
20 years later.
Different roads.
Man, when I was 15, 16, I wonder what I could have benched. It was definitely not.
But it was different. It was a different time though. It's like, you know, it was like late 80s, early 90s where bench was the thing.
Sure. Would you say that it's still the thing? Like if you were to go, it's been a long time since I was in the classic like gym bro type of a split, but typically it was always like Mondays was like bench day.
Yeah, I think it's still there.
Still there.
I think it's still there pretty hard, because I feel like it's like the easiest compound lift to do.
Yeah.
You just lay down and start cranking.
Well,
out.
how about this? I think the misconception is that it's the easiest compound lift to do. I think you get to do it while you're laying down, right?
Right.
That's your point.
I think the barrier of entry in it is very low.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, you got to learn to back squat, but you got to learn to deadlift.
Yeah.
But really, you just lay down and start
pressing.
Yeah.
And if you're good at it, what ends up happening is you bench 285 at 15, 16 years old. If you're bad at it, you're barely doing your body weight.
I put a lot of work into it though. But I mean, we had to kind of.
Did you train from like 12 to 16 essentially?
No, I started lifting when I was like, when I first started lifting, but it was intermittent. You know, it was like only my Uncle Joe was like in a good mood. He would let me lift with him. So it was, you know, and then from there I kind of like started going by myself.
Yeah.
I was just like going to the gym and I only knew how to bench and curl. So I would just do that every day, every single day. And then
how many days a week were you doing that?
Probably 6. And then for like 2 years, like a year, you know, when I was 14 or something. And then I met this guy through wrestling. I was a wrestler.
Yeah.
I met this guy, and he's like,
what weight did you wrestle at?
Oh.
Did you have to cut a lot, or did you?
Yeah, I cut a lot of weight, and then I was like, I think around this time I was wrestling at 145, and I was cutting down from
you were cutting on like 10
pounds, about 10 pounds. I guess not a ton of weight, but yeah, about 10 pounds, and then when I started competing, that's when I started competing in powerlifting as well. Yeah. And I put up some numbers. I deadlift. I remember I deadlifted like 415.
Oh.
Like literally.
That's a good number for you now.
That's way more than I can do now. And but it was not. I mean, like.
Do you know if it was good technique or like?
Oh no, I just gripped and ripped. Because first of all, we barely ever deadlifted.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I got the crash course, and then we just kind of didn't do it. We always benched, and we were always doing other kind of stuff. We're doing like weird. We were doing like weird strongman stuff, and then I just kind of gripped and ripped. And I remember I missed my last attempt. On my last powerlifting meet, I missed my last attempt for hitching. And I think it was like 435.
For those of you listening, that's where you drive your knees underneath and you do like a little bit of a scoop to get it up.
Scooping it.
CrossFit world, we count that.
We do count that here. I try not to let people do it, but
in the powerlifting world, technically, like so you watch like the games where they did the CrossFit Total.
Yeah,
there's some pretty.
Yeah, they pretty much can't. They're pretty much making a picnic on their laps there, just like hold on, shaking their hands out.
So that's not allowed in the powerlifting community.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. But I mean, that's you would call that like a gym PR, right? Like hitting. You still stood it up, but you.
You're right. I still got it, but I missed it, and then I mean.
When was your? I know you've done a couple meets recently, but like when was your last? When you were doing that competitive thing, like when was your last? How old were you when it was your last powerlifting meet?
I think I was 18.
Okay. Did you compete on the did you guys have a powerlifting team at school?
No, there wasn't at school. It was through YMCA, and again, like. This is like mid '90s. It wasn't a big lifting. We had a weight room, but no one. It was like dusty.
So I mean,
locked in a back room.
Powerlifting now. I mean, most lifting in school systems has to do with sports anyway, right? Like, so I took a weights class, but like the people who are taught how to lift are like typically the football players, maybe the wrestlers. I don't know if you guys got taught that. But powerlifting as a sport, definitely. I mean, shoot, it's pretty. Countercultural. It's very subculture still. Like
very.
You talk about like famous powerlifters, and they're like I don't know D-list, E-list, F-list celebrities. Like where the people who know them are the people who are in the sport. I think the same way about CrossFit athletes. But like the sport of powerlifting in the '90s was even less and smaller than it is today, where the people who were really good at it were like again celebrities in the sport, but it was definitely not something that people were training for. I was not crazy to. Here, but I heard there's a couple schools around here that have powerlifting teams now, and I was they told me that, and I was like, wait, what? I didn't even realize that was a high school sanctioned sport, or there are high schools that are competing against each other.
Yeah, now you're seeing not only powerlifting teams but weightlifting teams like the Olympic lifts. My buddy in Kansas just started. They had their coaches association got together and did something separate from the schools. So the schools, they wanted to push this weightlifting kind of state type thing. Yeah. And the school districts weren't having it. And so the coaches association got together and did their own. And it was the awesome thing I've ever seen. And it was like, so now they have teams and they win a state title, but it's like not really sanctioned. For sure. But it's still awesome because I mean like.
Do they still confine themselves to a school? It'd be like one school versus another school. Or
yeah. Like so one school bring their lifters, another school, and then they'll all go.
So I mean it is so it's I guess more like I don't think like club sports where like you might have people from lots of different schools come together to compete. This is like truly a school title, even though it's not sanctioned. Right. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
And you're seeing, and it's just kind of spreading, but again, nothing like that even come close to existing. Whenever I was younger, and I really got in. Like, there's like 3 guys. There's one guy who's my friend, who's his brother. He was like a what we call nowadays like a 4-star recruit. He went and played at Wisconsin and got some pro time in, but he was huge, and he was like, and he trained hard. He probably the only one in the school, and he's the guys he lifted with. And then I remember I would come in and I'd bench every single day and curl, and like it really annoyed him because he'd be in the gym and I'd be in the gym, and he's like, dude, I'm sick of watching you do the same thing. And then he put the bar on my back and he started teaching me how to squat, and then he introduced me to this other guy who was pretty much an altruistic dude, and he still does stuff for kids, getting get everybody out of the weight room, and then in the Y, and that was
teach them how to do stuff.
Teach them how to do stuff, lift stuff.
Teach them the iron life.
Right.
And so that was that 14, 15, 16, 17, that time frame. And then did you go military right after that?
No, I went to college.
College.
I went to college. You know,
did you do the ROTC type of?
No.
Okay.
No, I didn't. I went to college. I was wrestling, and then I wasn't very good at school, and I was just tired.
And were you doing mainly just wrestling at that point?
I was just doing wrestling.
Were you doing any lifting to supplement that?
No, we had conditioning, and what
is wrestling conditioning? Is that like, I know that they typically like air bikes, like most people who've done air bikes.
And again, we're still in the same time frame where we're like
Schwinn's maybe.
No
air bikes.
There was no air bikes.
Gotcha.
There was just like all these weird old like.
Did you do the Versa Climber?
No, there wasn't no such thing. There was like it was like what do they call them? The Universal Gym. It was like the plates and it had like the 1,000 stations. We had like 2 of those, and you know, and again, there was no like certified strength and conditioning coach. We had a guy who could lift, but he was like a assistant coach, so he would just go through stuff, which was not, you know, I mean, it was just like it was a ton. I feel like right now I'm looking back, it was dumb, but it was like it was accurate. So that means that we did a ton of dips, a ton of pull-ups, tons of pulling.
Stuff. Yeah, like calisthenic type stuff, which is great strength training work.
And then we ran a lot, sprints, tons of sprints, carrying stuff like that. But it was cool
for sure. And then I guess at what point did you get back into barbell stuff?
Oh man, I guess, yeah. Towards the end there, I think in my late 20s. My late 20s.
Was it back into powerlifting, or was that where you...
So I got back into CrossFit-ish, right?
Okay.
So I was in the military.
You said in your late 20s?
My late 20s, yeah.
So that would that have been early in the CrossFit movement?
Yeah, it was like 2007.
Yeah, so like 3 or 4 years into it, yeah.
Right. So I did a couple more powerlifting meets because I had a buddy who was like super into powerlifting, and he's like, do this, me, and so I just trained with him and put up some pretty mediocre numbers. And then
he says mediocre, guys.
Then what was it after that? Like it was CrossFit was starting to permeate through the military, and so we started. They were sending.
Were you still in the Navy at that point?
I was in the Navy, and they were still sending. They started sending guys to get their level 1s. They were coming back, and they were putting up programs.
That's where they kind of started the. They didn't. What did they do? They waived the affiliate fee for military base gyms. Is that what they did?
I'm not sure, but there was no base gym. There was no gyms.
There's just sort of trainers.
There
do that stuff.
Yeah,
out in the blue.
There was we had a pretty nice gym in our compound. So I mean, like we already had, but then they started switching over from global to functional fitness type stuff. You know, like mats, and you start seeing bumpers, and we had a couple guys. And up to that point, I was lifting, but I was like just doing the bodybuilding stuff, and I would run and swim. And
did you ever try and do CrossFit type of stuff on a ship?
Yeah.
Does that go well?
It can go. It can work.
I imagine like a carrier wouldn't be too bad.
Yeah.
Like smaller ships, I can't imagine it being something that you could.
I've never been on a ship, but I've been on a boat, right? So it's we're talking about 100 foot, 150 foot.
What's the difference in a ship and a boat?
The size.
Just the size, okay.
Size, engine output, stuff like that. But I mean, like they call it like a small boat, so it's like under 200 feet. Like the one we were on.
Would be like a frigate? Would that still be a ship?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's long. That's big. That's big. But those are pretty susceptible to water conditions, right? Yeah. But if you're on a carrier, it's pretty much like being on. Like,
I mean, it doesn't move. It doesn't unless you're on like really rough seas. You're not moving.
It'd be you're not moving.
I mean, there's essentially a floating city, right? Like it's.
Oh yeah, it's big.
4,000, 5,000 people.
6,000 people.
Yeah, something like that. It's got some power grid, right?
Yeah.
For God's sake.
Own reactor.
And so you did so you did CrossFit, and have you been doing CrossFit basically since that point, or did you take a break from CrossFit?
I took a couple breaks. I mean, I took a few breaks. So I just started getting, I guess that was like when we started getting introduced into it, like 2007-ish. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't really, I guess I still haven't really bought in. I started really going to an affiliate to like 2000.
Like right now, you still haven't?
11. I guess I have lately. Like the last couple of years, I've actually kind of like just given myself completely to the process, and I've loved it.
At the same time, well, I guess we could probably follow some threads there. Like, what is the CrossFit methodology? Like,
right.
I think the original one was just whatever works, like whatever gets results, right? Like,
Right.
And it was, I don't know, it was not a codified thing, and then they kind of codified it, and now it's, either you do CrossFit or you don't do CrossFit. But I feel like it's like nebulous, right? Like the idea was that it wasn't any one thing that was CrossFit. Because you've been doing, I mean, you do like bodybuilding type stuff. You do aesthetic, You're doing aesthetic type training, but it was not like your typical 3 sets of 8. You do it more like the superset and like giant set type of training where you're still getting some intensity in there, but just not in the traditional setting. And I guess so. You were off and on there for a little while.
Off and on, yeah.
Then when did your CrossFit gym pop up? What year was
Right. So I got out of the military in 2012. A short stint out there, and then I think it was around I want to say 2015. 14-ish, late 14, 15-ish. I started my own gym in a 4-car garage with the help of some friends who really helped me out. And I borrowed some equipment, old gym equipment, and then I just started piecemealing it all together as people started coming in. Yeah. And really, when you're taking like the level 1 and they're explaining like all the things like not to do. And I was like, I just full sent it. They're like, Wait,
did you know not to do them at that point?
I did. And I mean, like, and part of it was like I knew it, and I was like, I'm like, yeah,
what's gonna happen if I don't?
Yeah, I'm like, not me. I'm gonna be the one exception. And then, and then part of it was
just.
Give
some for instances here. Like, what were some of the things that you did that you knew you shouldn't have done?
Oh, right. So I just starting a box. That's probably I shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have done that right off the bat because I didn't have enough experience, right? And I.
How quick after getting your level 1 did you open that place?
I had already opened it before I even had my level 1. So I was just going off the cuff,
Don't listen to it. If you're from
don't do this.
Yeah, first of all, you don't do this. Secondly, if you're from CrossFit headquarters, that's not true.
Yeah, don't forget about it.
Yeah,
I'll deny it. And then I'll deny it saying that I would deny it. So that I just didn't have enough experience. I didn't have any business. I was not business savvy. I didn't know how to run a business.
Sure.
Right, but I could work out pretty well. I was really good at working out, and I feel like Yeah, that's how I saw it.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of blew up. And plus, the location helped a lot. I had the monopoly. Like there was another even a real gym.
Are there still any other CrossFit gyms there?
Yeah, there now there's a couple.
Okay.
And but I mean at the time within 60-mile radius there was no gyms, so everyone started coming.
Yeah.
And I started packed up, and then after a year and a half, I told you about we did Murph one year. The 1 year in the garage. The 1 year we did it in the garage, I think 60 people came.
In a 4-car garage.
In a 4-car garage, there was one way in. We put in some double doors into the garage, and there was one way in, one way out, and it was so hot in there. There was a dude. There was a guy. There was some pretty wealthy dude in there. He's like I'll give you $6,000 if I can just bring my what do they call those?
AC unit,
he's his skid steer, and let me knock down that wall so we can have some air. Dude. And I was like, I would love to do that. I'll take the but we
so how about we just move? How about we just get a location?
So I got another stuff. We got a 10,000 square foot facility, and we filled it up, and then I was just full send. And I wasn't a very good business person.
You were just kind of flying by the seat.
I was absolutely flying. I was just kind of just going, just taking it, and then But it was a really good experience. I learned a lot of things. I learned what I didn't want to do, which was own a business, and and I did fall in love with CrossFit. I mean, I really enjoyed it before that, but then I was like, okay, I do love this, but I mean, I got to get better, and this is not the place to do that.
Yeah, yeah. And that was that your first real, I guess, heavy duty experience coaching?
Yeah.
Did you do any coaching before that at all, with anybody, or was it literally? Just
I was doing some personal training type stuff,
yeah.
And that was just because someone had come and be like, "Hey, you're pretty fit. Would you teach me? Just really random."
Yep.
And so I started doing it, and then just from that, I was doing 10 or 15 people.
Yeah.
In my sister's garage.
Did they join your CrossFit?
Yeah, they were the first ones. I was like, "Hey, we did this one thing." I met this guy.
It's very Greg Glassman, what I understand of that story was he had a lot of personal training clients, and he started doing small group personal training, and then you're like, hey, why don't we just have like a class? I'll do a class at 8 o'clock. All these people who are close to that will come to this one class.
That's exactly what you do. And I was personal training this wife and her sister and there's this one of my other buddies who's a really good friend now. He came down and he's like, he's just really handy, and he's like, I got this garage. Let's just turn it into a gym. And we started going to town. He was super excited. We went inside, and then it just kind of took off. And then I was like, I think at one point I had like 150 members or something.
Yeah.
And then I was like, this is going good. And then I was like, but I wasn't making any money, and I was really, really tired. And again, that for like that maybe a year and a half or something, I was coaching, like, and I was like, oh, it'll be fine. And I had like maybe 7 classes a day, just coaching them all, every single day.
Yep. 5 days a week, 6 days a week.
6 days a week.
Yeah.
And then that lasted for a little while, and then
not long.
I got some other people that finally found some help, and then till that kind of broke it up. But I was still coaching a ton, and then trying to run business, which I wasn't doing very well at. And,
I mean, it just takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have to have you're coaching a lot of hours, and then you're coaching 42 hours a week already, and then you got to do all the business stuff on top. It's tough.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where you found like would you say like a love for coaching, or would you like was at that point like was it difficult to I guess divorce the coaching from the business ownership? I guess how did you because I mean you took a break for a while from coaching. I guess you did your work that you did at the fire station, coaching that you did there. Where I guess was that a smooth transition? Did you go right from coaching at the CrossFit gym, sell your gym, and then go right into fire station with doing the training that you do there?
Yeah. So yeah, it was very, very smooth, and that's the only way it could have happened, because I just needed. After that point, when I sold my gym and I got out of there, everything had to be easy. Like I was so burnt out. Yeah. I'm like, I'm not trying to do this, and I just had like. I wouldn't say it was a traumatic experience, but it was like definitely, it left a really big impression on me. Sure. Like, you start thinking about like, oh, I failed at this. I didn't do. I wasn't as good as I thought I was. Yeah, and then like, man, maybe I hurt some people. Maybe
there's a lot of psychological factors that go along with that, right?
Yeah, and
just,
then
first of all, being a coach, but then also second, being a business owner. Third, like you're going through the process of transitioning out of that. There's a lot of baggage that goes along with that. Right?
Yeah,
there's stuff to work through.
And that's really I didn't want to coach. I was like, I'm done. I'm never going to do this again. And I just kind of. But the way I went to there, I was in the fire academy, and then instantly, like there was some, I saw some things in the fitness
aspect of the
fire academy there. I was like, oh well, I made some suggestions, and then really, it was just perfect timing. I just make some suggestions. I organized a little workout when no one was there, and then they're like, and then when we graduated, hey, do you want to take over do you want to work with the program? Right. Well, I didn't take over it, because I would say I would, I joined. Yeah. I partnered up with Casey to do it, because like the schedules, and I said, yeah, I'll do it. And then Casey ended up leaving, and I was by myself, and I did that for maybe a year by myself. And now we got some other person, but it was really smooth, and it was like easy, and it was no stress, and because it's like, I just made up the work. I wrote out the workouts for every single. I remember showing
more or confined or defined, which either way you want to think about it, right? Like it doesn't spill over into every single thing you do. It's more like hey, while we're here doing this, we're doing this, and then it's a little bit easier to define too, because you have, you're not trying to necessarily try to market your business, right? Like the people who are at the academy are the people who you're training for that period of time.
Yeah, and it's a lot different, because it's like. You don't have to worry.
Less stress.
You don't. Yeah, it's less stress, because you don't have to worry about them.
Yep.
You're like, hey, this is what we're going to do. If you don't like it, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
Right.
This is what's necessary to do your job.
Right.
It's also a little bit like when CrossFit football popped up, right? Like one of the things John Welborn said was like, CrossFit was like trained for the unknown and the unknowable, and he's like the demands of CrossFit or the demands of football are known. Kind of the same thing. The demands of being a firefighter are pretty well defined and pretty well known. So like, you might not like these things, but this is what you need in order to be fit enough to do your job.
Totally, and that's what made it so. That's what made it so easy. Like that's what makes those CrossFit challenging. Yeah. Is like there's so much stuff you got to be good at. But here, like we're doing some basic calisthenics stuff to kind of get the cardio aspect back into shape, and then we are going to climb, carry, and pull stuff all day long.
Because you have to be good at those things.
Right.
You have to be well conditioned, and your capacity can't be subpar, or else people could die.
Yeah.
Bad things can happen.
Not great, not ideal.
Which is different than the average CrossFit person. Their life isn't necessarily. I guess technically you could say different way that their life might be on the line health wise, but like it's not in the middle due to performance, right?
Right.
And then so you're still in that capacity at the Fire Academy, right?
Yeah.
And you came to us to coach year and a half, 2 years ago.
No, I think it was just a year ago.
Just a year ago. Gosh, man.
Yeah.
It's been a fast year, and you have come on with a ferociousness.
I think.
Veracity. I don't know. So I'm trying to think of a word, but
I think everything it's got to take its time. I told you I didn't want to coach anymore because I was just like, it was a traumatic experience for me,
sure.
And then like I've never had, I guess when somebody telling me that like I shouldn't be running business or that I'm a terrible coach, that really sticks with me, right? That stuck with me, and I was like, it made me feel like I was a bad person, and it hurt a lot, and so now I was just sitting and I've been stewing on that, like the last few years I was out of it, and I was like, man, what do I want to do here? And I was like. And I just think about like, okay, so if I don't get back on the horse, I would have wasted all that,
Sure.
And it just kind of like, don't be like, I just didn't want to be like that. Like, just the one more thing that I just kind of scammed over and just threw away. I want to get something out of this. Yeah. I want to set some super high goals for myself and just kind of like heal from the whole past experience. Be like, hey, they were right. I mean, it sucked, it sucked.
I don't know. It's like I always talk about conspiracy theories having like a kernel of truth, right? Like
right.
That's the reason why they latch on. It's like the same thing. You can find truths in what those people said, whether or not what they actually said was, 100% exactly what was going on. But you can be like, well, maybe I wasn't as good of a coach I should have been, or maybe I wasn't as good as a business owner as I could have been, and latching onto those things and then deciding like, oh, I want to be better at that thing. You do have lots of goals when it comes to coaching and getting back into it. What are you most passionate about? Like when it comes to coaching?
Comes to coaching? Oh man.
Why do you coach?
Well, I want to say like something nice, like like, oh, I do it for the clients and stuff like that. I mean, there is that. That's a huge thing.
Sure.
That's a huge thing for me. Like, you see somebody like really going through the transitions and transforming their lives and bodies. I think that there's nothing that makes me. I mean, I'm really excited about it. But I mean, again, I'm coming back to I just want to know that I'm getting better at something.
Yeah.
Right. Self-improvement. I think like that, and then I think it goes in hand. Like the better I'm getting, the better everyone else is getting.
It's a real, like, you found value in self-improvement, right? Like you see value in self-improvement, and you've aligned that with the ability to help other people improve themselves as well.
Yes.
I think it's really cool too. One of the neat things about the fitness industry or being a coach is like you help. It's like the teaching a man to fish as opposed to giving a fish, right? Like I joke around with my PT clients sometimes, like, hey, if I could work out and like just give it to you, I would totally do that because I love working out. But like part of the difficulty in the health industry is that like you can't do that, right? Like
no.
I can't work up like, I don't know, 200% of my fitness and then give you 100% of it, and all of a sudden you become a fit individual or
right.
Your health is improved. It's all a matter of like the person has to do that work and has to work through that. And like you're helping them do that, like by definition of being a coach, you're helping them work through that the stuff that nobody else can do for them, and that's it's like a catch-22 is like money can buy you a lot of things, but it can't buy you fitness. It can't buy you increased work capacity. There's no amount of money that you can hand to somebody and all of a sudden you can do a pull-up. Like you have to do that work yourself.
Yeah, you gotta start coughing over the cash. If you want.
Is that a thing? Can I do
Can you
that?
cough? And I don't think you can literally cough of cash unless you like it. You got to put it down.
Put it down at the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, we had some other stuff that we were going to talk about, and I'm probably going to have to bring you back for that because we ran out of time with all of our.
I know we had
fiddling.
Yeah, we had.
I
knew I was when I was out there at the table. I was thinking this ain't gonna go well, and I was like, because you didn't mention like how the setup is. I know you only got one mic now back here, 2 dudes, 1 mic.
Don't Google that.
Yeah,
Don't Google that. Just leave that reference alone.
So I was like, okay, this is gonna be. We're gonna get behind sketch here.
Yeah, a little technical behind schedule.
But now we figured it out.
We do have a little bit of a setup.
There's a mute button on this thing, so you just turn it on, turn it off.
I was looking at you. I would have known.
It'll record.
It's fine.
It'll record.
But yeah, so guys, this is co-host Coach Brooks here at CrossFit North, and coming to talk to you a little bit about his story in fitness. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and like I said, he'll be back. We gotta talk about weightlifting shoes.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
How passionate you are.
I'm not super passionate about
it. How much you hate people wearing weightlifting shoes.
Oh, I love it. I want to see everybody in weightlifting shoes. By the time.
Have you ever seen somebody wear weightlifting shoes outside of the gym?
Yes.
Dude, it's real weird.
It is very weird. I'm like, that's not how it works.
I saw it at the grocery store one time, and I was like, it was like a double take. Like you saw, are those elevated? It was like the gold, like the these guys. For those of you who are watching, the Reebok lifters with the gold shoes, and I was like, that person must just really have liked the way. He
might have forgotten his shoes. You know,
I guess maybe I didn't give him that.
I
just assumed it was somebody who's like maybe like you got rid of your lifters and that person went to like a thrift store
and just found them.
Like,
and then,
oh man, these things they're like shocks. I love them.
Like I'm like 2.5 inches taller.
Indeed, exactly.
Which is kind of why I wear them at home.
I was gonna say, I'm with the short guys.
I'm at least as tall as my wife now.
Indeed. Well, but guys, we appreciate you tuning in. Whatever episode of the rig this is.
I don't know.
David
Brooks.
Signing off.
Bye bye.